We can protect underwater cultural heritage, but that is a whole scale of things that we can do. And often they have to be done, or a lot of things have to be done after one another. First thing you do is, of course, you have to make sure that you know what you protect. So an assessment, making an assessment of sites is very important before you're doing any protection measures. Legal protection is important as well. Legal protection we do in the Netherlands through the heritage law, but internationally we have a lot of law protection as well. But that's setting the boundaries of the playfield, let's say, of what you can do and what you can't do. But that's not all. Only setting laws is only restrictive, and it doesn't, in the end, it helps on individual level, but it doesn't in the end help for the overall protection of cultural heritage. The most important thing is to educate people and to tell people stories and to get people enthusiastic about science. And so if you know about underwater cultural heritage, you start to like it, you start to enjoy it maybe. You start to be curious, you want to know more about it, you want to enjoy it, yeah? And then you want to protect it. Yeah? And when you protect it, you have a lot of responsibilities on something, so you want to know more about it again. So it's like a cycle of protection. And this is what we often have to create. We have to set a little fire as cultural heritage professionals to make sure that also other people say it's worth that we protect it. And this is one of our most important things that we should do. And it's becoming more and more and more important because the bottom-up approach of cultural heritage management, but also enjoyment, is becoming bigger and bigger. Think about the Faro Convention in Europe, where the possibility for people to be involved in the enjoyment and research and protection of cultural heritage is being arranged. So those things are very important. We talk about legal protection, setting the boundaries. Okay, this is really the end of what you can do and not can do. But within that you have to create communities that say, yes, we find it worth to be protected. And if you want people to help you protecting it, they have to know what they're doing and they have to know what you're talking about. So education, talking, discussions with other people, that's really important, and it's a really important part of cultural heritage protection. Often neglected, but maybe one of the most important things to do. Then we have, when we think this site should be protected underwater, we have done our legal things, we have discussed with other people, maybe the source community living around the area, we need to protect it. And we see that there's a lot of abrasion, erosion, biological degradation. We can do physical protection as well to take away the most degrading factors and of parameters. And we know what those most important parameters are because we've done the assessment in advance. So this is why the first initial research is always very important. And then we can cover a site, for example. What we do in the Netherlands, and it's also being taken over by other countries, is to protect sites with polypropylene nets. We put them over the site and they wave in the water and they filter the fine sediment which is suspended in the water out of that water, and it settles on the shipwreck itself. And within 1 or 2 weeks, nature is actually covering the whole site again, and the sand stays on the site because of the polypropylene nets. Then afterwards, you have to do your monitoring. You have to see whether the protection measures still work, and if they're not working, you have to repair them. So monitoring again is very important, and we have to make sure that we have budget to do those things. Repairing is very important. And now there's another very interesting thing on how you can further protect sites is not only to look at the cultural value of sites, but also see if you can have the possibility to connect with other stakeholders that have other values which they attach to a site. And I try to explain this. For example, biodiversity. Shipwrecks in the Dutch seas, the North Sea and the Wadden Sea, are the only hard substrate on the seabed bottom. We have sand, and we have the shipwrecks which are sticking out of the seabed, and fish are, especially young fish, are finding a protective area around there. There's a lot of natural growth on those shipwrecks. So biodiversity is really important for those seas. It's actually that important that the Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands is searching for ways to get more fish and more diversity of fish into the Wadden Sea and the North Sea. So joining with them to select sites which we will cover. So we're taking them out of our vision. Yeah, I'll come back to that. But also to select sites which you won't cover because you think they're especially important for the biodiversity and the enjoyment of sports divers. We have about 40,000, 50,000 sports divers in the Netherlands. They can protect sites, but also they can protect sites, maybe the ones that are covered, because they can enjoy other sites as well. So selection is another very important part of preservation. Knowing, so not saying everything should be preserved, because everything is, we have 62,000 sites in the Netherlands on the seabed, 62,000, which is an enormous amount. We can't protect them all, and we don't need to protect them all. But some sites are more important for this, and others are more important for that. If we cover a whole site with that polypropylene nets, so taking it out of the vision of sports divers, that's a pity for them. But what we can do is to build upon that protected site. We can build hard substrate to make it a natural reef, or no, sorry, an artificial reef. Yeah, so we create a reef where we can do that biodiversity. At some places, we need areas to catch mussel seed. That's also a large economic work which is done in the Dutch seas, having those mussel places which we like to eat. So, but those seeds have to be caught, and we can use those wrecks. On top of those wrecks, we can create those places where we can catch those seeds. So combining different values works very well in protecting the overall cultural heritage. And that means always mitigating against these different things and even economic gain of the country, because we have to move forward as well.